Joining me on the program now is parenting expert from the Parenting Place, Kristin Ward. Kristin, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Morning, Andrew. Lovely to be here.
First up, I just wanted to put things in perspective. Was this you as a little girl, Kristin?
No, it really wasn't.
Well, we're on the same page here, but yeah, we know those kids. And, I remember them when I was at school. I don't think I've got any in my family. I got 5 kids and none of them had that problem. But actually, this is a real issue. And sometimes, people think, oh, isn't it good? They work so hard. They're so diligent. This is such a good thing. But actually, unless we treat it right, it can be a problem for this child. In fact, it sets them up for striving and disappointment and beating themselves up for the rest of their life.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Like often with younger children, we are delighted with perfectionist tendencies.
Yeah.
They might be the child who is very focused on having a tidy room and making their bed like they're in the army every day, or we might see them taking such care with that little cover page they've been asked to do for their homework and taking hours over it. And their report cards might paint a beautiful picture with gold stars in every category, and
Yeah.
the parent-teacher interviews say, oh my goodness, if I had 30 children like this one, my job would be a dream. Your child's a dream. So
Yeah.
the child can get a lot of affirmation and a lot of actual encouragement in their perfectionist tendencies. What we really want to watch is when there is a real intensity in the child when they make a mistake.
Okay.
When they are really hard on themselves, or they get really angry or really explosive sometimes. We might feel like we've just given them a very mild telling off, and they lose the plot and get furious, or they may say things that are quite concerning, like, I hate myself, or why did I do that? I'm such an idiot. And they can be very, very harsh in their self-talk. So as a little one, it can get quite encouraged. And then we may start to notice that, oh, this is a little bit out of balance. And especially when children reach teenage years, high school, it can become a lot more apparent that they're spending all their waking hours doing their homework. It's never good enough.
Yeah.
They aren't letting themselves go to sleep at night because they don't feel like they've reached a high enough standard. And we can start feeling a bit concerned that it's not quite right.
In terms of causal factors, is this just some kids are like this? This is the way in which they're wired? Or, look, I'm not going to throw guilt at parents, but in some ways, do we do this to our children itself? If we praise our children for all of the good stuff, are we reinforcing something which, we think, hey, we're reinforcing good behavior, but actually are we setting our child up for a perfectionist response? Because they love the affirmation. They want more of that. So I suppose, do we need to be careful with younger children that the praise isn't just for perfectionism, that we praise our children when they have a go, when they try something out and it doesn't work, that we bring some more balance into the way in which we show praise?
Such a great question. And I never blame parents for this developing in a child. Sometimes it can be like temperament. Sometimes it is maybe coming straight down from the parents that they've got perfectionist tendencies themselves. Sometimes it could be the type of praise and compliments that we are giving our children and that the world is giving our children, which is not actually within our control. And sometimes children are just get stuck on this idea that they can be just perfect and flawless, and they really, really, really are aiming for it. But there's so much parents can do, and to kind of bring that balance, we really want to see that balance and that ability to relax standards sometimes, to rest, to enjoy themselves, to have some self-care, to know when something is good enough. So the first thing I would just say parents can do is really model. So modeling is huge in parenting. We want to model that mistakes are normal, that we make mistakes ourselves, and it doesn't mean we're bad. So how we do that, we need to watch how we're talking when we make mistakes. If we forget the milk, We don't want to say, oh, I'm such an idiot, I always forget something off the shopping list.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's harsh.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
so harsh to ourselves, and it's not good modeling.
Mm.
If we replace it with something like, oh, I forgot the milk, never mind, we'll have toast for breakfast. That's modeling, I'm not a bad person, I forgive myself. We can all be flexible around this mistake. So, and there's other things we can model. We can model that we as adults are happy to try new things, to do things we're not yet good at, because that's something else that happens with perfectionist children. They may feel really kind of allergic to trying something new because they're not good at it yet, and they will look like a fool.
Don't
or
want
they
to risk
will
anything
feel
that they're not perfect at already, right? So they just
they can't
smaller
handle
and
that
smaller
feeling.
circles. Yeah,
And we can be that clumsy new learner surfer in our 40s and model, or we can take up te reo lessons and stumble through poor pronunciation. Or we want to model to our kids that we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we are, even when we're nervous, we want to try new things, and that's something we value in our family. Another thing we can do in our family is have a motto. Something like, in our family we try new things, and we really celebrate that. Or being brave is better than being perfect. That's another motto that I've heard. And thirdly, we really want to watch the kind of compliments that we are giving our children and that we are focusing on. So we want to orientate them around that we value character things. We value, if the child brings home a whole report card full of gold stars, we can tuck them in under our arm and say, do you know which ones of those stars are my absolute favorite ones, darling? They're the ones that say that you're kind to the new kid. They're that you're respectful and helpful to the teacher. So we can just, even in that situation, really steer our praise to be things that are not oriented towards perfectionism.
And honestly, the world needs a few overachievers, don't we? I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. And some children just saying, hey, they get all A's through school, they go on to get doctorates. They're just those types of kids. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I think those two risks that, particularly as they get older, it will lead to burnout, or the opposite of that they'll say, if it can't be perfect, I won't even try. And it will cause them to withdraw into themselves and not be that risk taker, not be that innovator that they could have been, perhaps.
Yeah. And as our children get older, there are a couple more things that we can really do to be supporting them in these tendencies. And like you say, there's absolutely place for striving for excellence and striving for high standards. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But what we want our children to learn is that they, when it's necessary, when is it a good idea to be like employing that amazing work ethic. So we can start with, gosh, darling, you've nailed the work ethic side of things. That's going to take you so far in life. So proud of you. Do you want to know what the next learning edge is? And kids who are perfectionists are very interested in, is there another learning edge? Give it to me, I didn't know there was more. And we can say your next learning edge is to learn how to be efficient. Because when you are going through high school, that workload is really ramping up. And you need to protect yourself from burnout. It's not sustainable how much work, how much time everything is taking you. You need to learn when to put that effort in and when you can be strategically coasting a little bit. When you can hand something in that's good enough but not perfect. That's your next learning edge. And kids can really, and so then we need to follow that with compliments and praising when we're noticing efficiency, when we're noticing them giving themselves a break or prioritizing balance.
That's so good indeed. And like you say, to model a culture of just being able to chill out, being able to say, hey, this is when we work hard and this is when we just relax, and not have that look like a bad thing indeed. I mean, this is a complicated issue, but such wonderful practical wisdom and advice on this one. Of course, more available at theparentingplace.nz. Kristin, thank you so much for the work that you do. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Pleasure, Andrew. Thanks for hearing me.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.